Hey everyone, I'm Manny. I'm a current M2 here at Case, and I'm here to talk to you about what a typical weekly schedule here looks like starting in Block 2. You might be asking, what happened to Block 1? Well, Block 1's a little different. You don't have IQ right away. Your histopathology and anatomy sessions happen every week, and then there's other required activities too. So it doesn't really follow a weekly schedule. But here is what your typical weekly schedule looks like after Block 1 and starting in Block 2. So every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you'll have your case inquiry teams, or like we call them, IQ, starting at 8 a.m. And these are small group sessions, usually just 8 students and one faculty facilitator. And your block 1 and 2 IQ team is actually randomly selected from students in your academic society. So, for example, I'm in the Gerberding Society. So my block 1 and 2 IQ group were 7 other people from the Gerberding Society. But every block after that, your IQ groups gets randomly shuffled from anyone in your class. So it can be 7 people, doesn't matter what society. All the groups get shuffled up and you end up with a new group after the end of block 2, after the end of block 3, end of block 4, and so on. So you meet with this group at a minimum 3 weeks, 3 times a week. But I say minimum because IQ groups hang out outside of class all the time. For example, my IQ group, we've gone on trivia nights, we've gotten ice cream together, gotten dinner so many times. So there's a lot of freedom when it comes to how you make your IQ sessions, what you want them to be. And as long as you're getting all the work you need to be getting done, like you have the freedom to do whatever you want. So, for instance, we start off our IQ sessions with a fun question just to get everyone's vibes up. We've even made food in IQ before. So, anything goes as long as you're doing the work you need to be doing. So, speaking of that work, what you'll do is basically you'll get 2 cases every Monday, and then each group, every IQ group gets the same cases. And what you'll do in that group on Monday is make ULOs, or unofficial learning objectives. So, you'll make those by reading through the cases on Monday, and then after the Monday session, you'll go home and do the research on each case, and you'll do that throughout the week. And then on Wednesday session, Wednesday morning, you'll discuss the research on the ULOs for the first case you went through that week. And then on Friday, you'll present the research that you did on the second case. You'll talk about it as a group. At the end of the week, you get to access the OLOs, which are the official learning objectives that the school makes. And you can compare your ULOs and your research to them, sort of reconcile and see what exactly you might have missed, and do some research beyond that if you want to. So after IQ on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, that's when you'll typically have lecture TBL at 10 o'clock. TBL is our team-based learning. So slightly different from IQ. TBL, you'll be in a group of 6, and you stay with that group of 6 together for the first 2 years. So it varies how often you have TBL. So sometimes it'll be once or twice a week, but sometimes you won't have it for a whole month. It'll be once or twice a month. It really depends on the block. But these sessions are super interactive. They're super fun. Your group of 6 is actually, a large group with 15 other groups. And what you do is they'll give you sort of a case or a module with a bunch of questions, and you'll tackle one question at a time. And as a group, you need to discuss and decide on an answer. And then once you've decided an answer for a question, every group puts up their answer choice at the same time. They actually have little printout laminated letter choices, so everyone puts it up at the same time. And you sort of have a class-wide discussion on what you think the right answer is, why you think other answers might be wrong. It usually turns into a fun debate, depending on how difficult of a question it might be. If there isn't TBL, there will usually be optional lectures. And starting in block 2, most of the lectures are optional, but they are recorded. So if you want to watch them later, if you can't make it in person, that's always an option. But a lot of students still choose to go to lectures since you're here for IQ anyways. It's a great opportunity, meet the faculty, ask specific questions. These are really experts on whatever topic you're learning. So it's a great opportunity to go in and learn some more. Moving on to Tuesday mornings, that's when you have your Foundations of Clinical Medicine seminars, or Tuesday seminars. And we also like to call them touchy-feely Tuesdays, just because they cover not so much really like specific science topics in medicine, but more so the art of medicine. So things like bioethics, communication, sensitive topics, medical legal issues, things like that. And oftentimes patients also come in who might be living with a particular disease we're learning about. And it gives us a great perspective on what it's like navigating the healthcare system and the patient's experience with physicians and things like insurance and things like that. So usually the first hour of Tuesday seminar will be one big lecture or a patient panel. And then the second hour of that session is typically with your small group. Your Tuesday seminar small group is actually the same group that you're with for IQ in blocks 1 and 2. So you stay with them actually for Tuesday seminar for the entire first 2 years as well. So your block 2 IQ group might change after the end of block 2. But for Tuesday seminar, you're still with that group for the first 2 years. After Tuesday seminar at 10 o'clock, you can have you'll have structure or research and scholarship. So structure consists of Garla or histopathology. So one Tuesday or Thursday, it's either Tuesday or Thursday. They usually split like the class in half. So you might have Garla 1 week, and that consists of three 40-minute sessions of gross anatomy. So that's where they give you the HoloLens and you get to explore the anatomy of whatever body system you're learning. You'll have a 40-minute session on radiology, where you'll go into the computer lab and sort of like go through a lecture, go through some images, some case studies, and you'll also have a 40-minute session on living anatomy, which is more so like ultrasound. You get to practice ultrasound on some patients or some volunteers that come in, and that's a great opportunity to learn as well. So if you have Garla 1 week, the next week you might just have a histopathology lecture. Um, and then there's also occasional research and scholarship sessions. So these are interactive sessions with our research faculty, and they sort of teach you the aspects of research, like how to reach out to a PI, how to write a manuscript, what it takes to get authorship on a paper. And all of that is to prepare you for your summer research block and your eventual MD thesis. So usually all the required sessions are done by noon, which is amazing. Some days there might be afternoon sessions, and that's mostly your longitudinal Block A curriculum. So uh, things like physical diagnosis, communication skills workshops, other clinical skills, things like that. But that's only usually like one afternoon per week, and there might be weeks where you don't even have that. So it's really up to you how to spend your time in those afternoons. You might want to spend it, studying, catching up on lecture material, doing IQ research. You might have an elective. We don't have required electives in our first 2 years. We call them zero credit electives, but they allow you to explore different fields and other interests you might have. Um, the afternoons are also a great opportunity for some career exploration. We have four major hospitals in the area: University Hospitals, Cleveland Clinic, Metro Health, and the VA. All of them are always open to students coming in and following a doctor around, learning from them, asking questions. You might also have your pathway program sessions, and graduate classes for MSCP students. So a lot of ways you can spend that sort of afternoon. But while there is a lot of freedom, it does require a lot of self-discipline, a lot of self-motivation and good time management. And honestly, a lot of trial and error with how to best, divvy up your time. I've come to really appreciate the freedom to prioritize, like what I want. It gives me the opportunity to maybe focus on my work on a Monday, like right after IQ at the start of the week, study up on, some clinical skills I might have for a session later that week. But if there's a day where I want to take it a little easier, hang out with friends, go play basketball, enjoy my hobbies, I have the freedom to do that as well. So as long as you're staying on top of, small group work, your lecture material, overall schoolwork, um, you'll be in good shape. And yeah, that's what your typical weekly schedule at Case will look like.